Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is LJ. You're watching NoClutchGarage. I'm going to start the video today, but this is probably going to be filmed over the course of a few days, simply because there's a lot to do and a lot to cover. But not only that, I'm actually going to be splitting this video into two videos. One where I cover the swap, strictly just the swap, and then another one where I'm going to cover the installation of the oil cooler for the transmission. So make sure you guys subscribe, stay tuned, because this is going to be pretty much a two-part video. Right now I'm going to start with the prep work for the transmission oil cooler, and this section of the video will probably end up on both videos just because I don't feel like filming it twice over. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to pop the hood and take that front bumper off and put the car on the lift and get ready for the swap. Alright guys, so here the next step is going to be to take off this weather strip. So this comes off. I'm sure you guys have seen me do this quite a few times on my videos. And then these are T27s. I'm going to use a power tool. Now I have the good fortune of having a lift available for me in order to lift this car and be able to remove the bumper completely in the proper way. But there are going to be a few screws along this side, and there are going to be a few screws on the bottom. So let's go over that. Alright guys, so now my car is on the lift. I didn't race it very high just because I want to be comfortable working on it. Alright, so we have a few screws. We have one right here, one right there, technically one right there. And then we have this piece up here, which is basically going to be keeping the bumper stuck on the fender. And then we have two. I have one right there and two right here at the bottom. And then we have four right there in the middle. These ones right here. And then we have two more over here. And then obviously we'll have to do this side as well. And in order to take these off, you're going to need a 10mm socket. And you can use a power tool or a ratchet, doesn't matter. So these are actually extra long, they're longer than the other ones. And I said 10mm, actually 8mm. Alright guys, and here I wanted to show you guys, there is a screw up there that we're gonna have to take off too. Just wanted to show you guys because it's hard to see and it's behind this panel. Alright, if you all have parking sensors, just make sure you guys disconnect the parking sensors before you try to pull off the bumper completely, because you could rip that off and then damage it, and then that's a whole other ordeal. But here it is without a bumper. You guys can see the VS front mount intake right there, looking nice. So most of our work is going to be done over on this side for the oil cooler, and I'm going to be working around here a lot, routing some lines down that way, and then obviously underneath the car. Alright guys, and if you've never taken the belly pants off before, you're gonna need a 13mm socket, you're gonna need an 8mm socket, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, found an oil issue, so now I gotta address that. I think I have a leak and it's making the whole underside of my car look nasty. So we'll probably look into that tomorrow. Alright guys, so for this next part we're gonna release the fluid line that goes to the transmission fluid cooler that is right there. So in order to do that, there might be some fluid falls and drips. Make sure you have something ready to catch that just in case. So let's go ahead and take this off. We're going to be using an E8, and then with my hand I take this off and I can pull this out. Right there you see it's going to leak a little bit, so it's going to drip slightly. Just make sure you have something to catch it. Alright guys, so this next part we're going to have to take those lines off And to take those off, you see those green tabs. We're gonna have to mess with those green tabs a little bit in order to get this down. Alright, so these tabs are basically gonna be pushed back, but we're gonna press them first, pull them back, and then push them up. That's gonna release it. And then from here, you can just push it out. So that one's off. And then we have to take the one that is all the way up top. Like you can't even see, I don't think the camera can even reach. But basically that one comes straight down and it's the same process. You just have to get your hands in there. Let's see if we can get this out of the way. Oh, let's see why it's so difficult. Yeah, so this I can probably turn a little bit. I'm not gonna need these lines anymore, but I don't want to break them. I like keeping all my original stuff. Let's see, I get my fingers in there. Now I am aware not everybody skilled and can do this, so if you need tools, whatever you need to do, take this line off. But it's the same tabs, they're just up here and they're at a different angle, so it makes everything a little bit more complicated, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. All right, by turning it like that, like I just did, it actually made it really easy for me to see everything. So I would recommend that you take the lines from the transmission and turn them over this way, and then here I just do the same thing I did, and now it's gonna come right out. There we go. Hey, now I'm gonna take this plate off to give myself more space, and you're gonna need take a few 10mm plastic nuts, and actually there's one right here, and then there are two on the side right here. So this next part, we actually have to remove this cooler altogether. There are 3 bolts that are holding up the cooler onto the engine. So we have to take these coolant lines off too, because so the way this cooler works is the coolant comes in through here, through the backside, and then goes up. So that's the warmer side, right? So basically it's going to be warm coolant, or warm water in my case, coming from the engine, coming through here. What happens is that the transmission has to be at a certain temperature to operate properly. So this is essentially a transmission heater rather than a cooler. So we've been calling it a cooler this whole time, but really it's a heater. And the thing is though, is that if you have high engine temps, you're also going to have high transmission temps if you have this. By removing this, we're going to close loop the cooling for the transmission, meaning that it's going to be standalone on its own with the cooler, and that way we're going to plug these so the coolant doesn't have to make it through here anymore, and that's fine. The circuit doesn't have to completely loop, but we're going to cap those off so no coolant comes out, effectively removing it from the system, and that's going to yield better temperatures. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to want something to catch fluid, because a lot of coolant is probably about to come out when I take this line off. So the first thing we're going to do, this is C-clip up at the very top. So in order to remove that, I'm actually going to grab this pick tool and pull the C-clamp up. That's now unlocked, and then I can just push it out, but that's going to spew coolant everywhere, so I don't want to do that just yet. There's also going to be one line at the top, and that one's going to have to come off too. But right now I want to take this thing completely off, because as soon as I have it off, everything else is going to be so much easier. To remove this, there are going to be 3 different torques. So there's going to be, and they're all E8s. So E8 right here at the trans, there's going to be another one right above it, probably like 2 inches above, and then there's one right back here. This one is really hard to get to. I'll show you how to get to it, but yeah, there's only 3 bolts, and then that comes right out. But before we do any of that, this kit comes with these block offs. These block offs, they're for the coolant lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this coolant line really quickly, and I'm going to block it off with this. This is going to be really quick. There's going to be like fluid spewing everywhere, so I have to be quick. So I'll show you. So I have my catch device here. This will probably catch everything, but I'm probably going to get some on my head, to be honest. So let's go ahead, I'm gonna pull this off, and I'm going to snap this in really quickly. Comes off, fluid, and snap it in, and in place. There you go, no more leak. So there's the stopper right there, or the cap off. It's really cool that they included the cap offs. This is really well thought out. Plug and play, like I said. Cap off right there. Don't need to mess with this line anymore. This ain't coming out like at all, and it ain't leaking. I'll tell you that right now. So whenever we take the cooler off, there's going to be another line at the top, and we're going to have to do the exact same thing and cap it off quickly. First bolt. Alright, then there's one above that. That one I might need an extender or something to get. Same for the one back here. The one back here might be a little bit easier. So I can just get a little extender in there. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So get this one where it's in, and then I'm gonna use my ratchet to take it out. Looking at that top one. Top one will be a little bit harder. Alright, now this should come out. The little C-clip that you need to pull is right at the top. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you guys where it is just because of its location. Once you feel it, you have to feel around. Unfortunately, this is very deep up there. Once you feel it, you can grab it and pull it out. So I already felt it. Just need to find it. For that, I'm going to use a straight one of these, like less curled up picks, because I see it, or I feel it, I should say. Yep, I got it in. Alright, the clip is off. Now when I push this, the problem that I'm going to have is that it's going to spew a ton of coolant. So I need to have my fluid receptacle right here. I'm going to go ahead and grab my other stopper, my other plug, and have it ready. So I'm going to pull this down. And once it's released, it's going to start pouring a bunch of coolant. The line backed out, it's all the way up here. Grab your plug, put it in place. And let me give you a better look at what's going on up there. Okay, so here I want to show you what just happened. So what we ended up doing was we removed the transmission cooler, heater, whatever you want to call it. There's a bolt that goes right here. There are also two bolts that go up there, but you can't really see them. So I'm going to show you how everything looks on the cooler. So here's the cooler. So it was like this. This is the way we were looking at it. This little bracket is what I took off the side of the engine. So there are two more T8s right here, and then of course there are these two right here that I ended up taking out because it just became too complicated. It did take me a while to do that. There isn't a lot of space, and yes, I'm in the middle of a transmission swap. So could I have taken the transmission off and then done that a lot easier? Yes, I could have, but I wanted to be a little bit more realistic for you guys, because a lot of you, actually I'd say about 99 to 100% of you, are not going to be doing transmission swaps at the same time. But if you are, you can remove the transmission, everything will be easier. If not, you're gonna have to struggle, kind of like how I did. But now everything is ready. Now we can go ahead and start routing the lines from the front to the back and installing the cooler in the front of the car. Alright guys, so now that we have the bumper off, we have to take this plastic off as well. So for me, I have these dress up bolts, so they require a 5 Allen, but otherwise you would be using a T30 if I'm not mistaken. You just take these off. Now for me, I have the VS intake Alright guys, so now that we have all this space opened up, I did end up having to take this plastic off and then the intake filter. But once you have this, you actually want to take your scissors. If you're on an F22, you're probably going to have this piece of plastic right here. You want to make an opening right around here, and I marked it with Sharpie. But basically this is to allow the lines to go around and then go to the back to the transmission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut plastic where I marked it. And so this is the part that everybody dreads, is just having to modify some of the OEM stuff. I don't particularly have a problem with it, except for when it's like really tucked in there and I can't really get a good, you know, get a good grip on everything out here. This definitely is going to take you some patience, and this is more DIY than most things. Alright, so now I have that plastic cut out. It shouldn't get in the way of things. Now let me show you how to set up your cooler in order for you to install it here. Alright guys, so now I'm going to show you how to mount these brackets for the cooler. So the cooler, you can put it on either way, it's not going to really matter. So here's the top bracket. Make sure the top bracket, this is like you're facing the car. This top part needs to be facing forward, and then we're going to set it up like that. We're going to grab one of our little bolts, put a washer on it on top, and then put it through, and then we're going to get a washer and a nut underneath. So we have a nut and a bolt underneath, and we're going to do that 2 times. So we're going to do one there, and we're going to get one right here. So we have bolt, washer, washer, nut. And we're going to do that for this side and this other side. Alright, now that you have this bracket in the position that you want it, I already went to the car and like measured it out and everything, so I know where it's supposed to be on here. And then if you need to adjust it, you can just loosen everything. But right now, we're going to take a 10mm, which is basically going to hold a nut, and then we're going to take a 5 Allen and a socket, and we're going to go ahead and tighten it. You don't have to over tighten, just make sure it's tight. Like that. Alright, so now we have the top mounting bracket on, and now we're going to put the bottom one. The bottom one is the small one. It's basically going to go where your V-brace bolt goes, and we're going to mount it underneath like this. Alright, we're going to take a bolt and a washer, and we get a washer and a nut. Alright, this one I'm going to leave a little bit more loose, because this one I do need to adjust a little bit better. Alright, now that we have our mounting bracket like this, I'm going to set this aside for a second. And here we have our thermostat. This is from Improved Racing. And we're going to go ahead and take these red caps off here in the top, and included in the kit are these fittings. These fittings have an O-ring, and you already know the deal with the O-rings. You're going to take a little bit of this grease, put it around the O-ring. Remember, we want those O-rings to be lubricated before we tighten them up. And then we're going to put one, and it's going to get tight. And these don't have to be over tight, but you do want to use these non-marring aluminum tools like I've shown in the past, and then just give them one turn, or try to turn them and seal them. Alright, that's pretty tight already, so we're going to leave that alone, and then we're going to do the same for all 4 of them. Alright, so now we have this, and this is done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this blue caps off. Alright Alright, so here we have two lines. We have this one with a 90-degree angle elbow, and then we have this one with like a 45-degree angle elbow. And so this one with a 90-degree angle is going to go on the left side of the cooler if you're looking at the car, which is basically where the bracket is, on the side of the bracket. So we're just going to put that in there. Be careful with these AN lines, make sure that they go in properly, because the AN lines are very good, but they can also leak if you're not careful. We have one. There's the second one. And make sure this part right here, because they're two separate parts, make sure this part's kind of loose until the very end, and then you get it in the position that you want it in. And once you get it in that position, then you tighten it. And it's still going to turn. You see how it's turning? You just turn it back or hold it in place. Once you have this like this, we can go to the car and begin mounting. Alright guys, so now that we have assembled the cooler, this is the next part that I want to do, just because I think it's going to be easier if I go ahead and do this. So we're going to take one line at a time. I have to push the line through there. I don't know how well you can see, but you're going to have to push it through there. I'll show you a more clear view here in a second. Alright guys, now that we've figured out this part up front, I want you to see what's going on here. So we're routing all this through here. I ended up having to take off the duct that directs air to the brakes, and it's fine. I mean, it's not ideal, but that's what I had to do. There's not a whole lot of space up here in the front, so you kind of have to make do with what you got. Anyway, if we go around here, you can see the lines go through, and they go over this sway bar all the way through to the back, and then they're gonna make their way down here where they're met by this little guy right here, and this is the adapter that's gonna go in the transmission. So we're gonna put a little bit of lube around these O-rings, and then we're gonna put this in place. You might have to move the lines around a little bit, but eventually you get it in place, and you're going to press it in. You might need to use some sort of tool or something to press it in, get the O-rings in there. I'm going to put this through. So once that's through, you can actually leave it hanging like this, and then we're gonna grab the second line and we're gonna do the same thing. There's like barely any space. Holy crap, bro. Okay, I saw that. Go in! Simpler for you. I was trying to make this simpler for you guys, but it turns out I have to remove more stuff because I can't get any good visibility, unfortunately. So I'm going to remove this little panel with the ambient temperature sensor. Alright guys, I found my nut and bolt, and now my cooler is in place. I can go ahead and replace the air filter if I want. just go right here. It'll cover part of the cooler. I can probably move this intake a little bit more, but I think it's okay. Alright, so this is now the part that's gonna get a little bit trickier. So right here we have our in, which is going to the cooler. I want this side to be it, and then come out this way. I'm gonna twist these lines as much as we can. We don't want to kink them or anything, but definitely need to get them a little bit more flexible. So here I'm just gonna get my shorty, which is this one right here. Go ahead and put it in. And guys, the key to getting these AN lines in really easily is to ensure that there's no tension at the joint. So if it's starting to get harder or something, just wiggle it a little bit, it should loosen up. And then once you feel it is actually legitimately tight, go ahead and grab your wrench and tighten it up. It's non-marring, so even though it looks marred, you just wipe it. This bottom one, we're gonna do the same thing. And this is the thermostat. This part is really, really important. Once it's tight, and give it a little wiggle. Go ahead and tighten it all the way up. And then we're just gonna push these lines in. Yeah. I mean, it's literally, I could probably just plug it in. Yeah. So I'm gonna use this crowbar, and I'm gonna use a cloth so I don't damage the aluminum. But basically I'm gonna use this to press in the O-rings. Now we see how that's been pressed in, and then we're gonna take one of our screws, we're gonna stick it in here and go ahead and bolt it down. To put this in, you're gonna need the longer screw in the kit, and that's gonna go in, and then you just tighten it with an Allen key. And that's it. And so now with this, we've officially installed the BMS trans cooler. The last thing we have to do is put everything back together. I'll show you that in a second, how everything looks once everything is done. Alright guys, so at this point, I'm done with the cooler. Here, I'm gonna show you what it looks like from the front. Alright, so here, obviously, I still have the bumper off, but this is what it's gonna look like essentially. Cooler's right there, my filter's right there. I might go for a shorter filter just because I feel like that's too long, but anyway, that's besides the point. Everything is done and done properly. All the lines are routed where they're supposed to be routed. I will say I don't like the idea of my vent disappearing there that goes to my brakes, but at the same time it's just something that I can remedy later. But just be aware that you will most likely have to do that. So make sure you remove that vent. You're going to route the lines through there, and honestly there isn't really a better way to route the lines, so you're kind of stuck with that. And it's a good thing that this cooler isn't really necessarily for anybody, because it's a lot of custom work. But right now guys, let's go ahead and put this bumper back on. And of course you put it back on the way you took everything off. So we're gonna put it back on and we're gonna see how it looks. Alright guys, so here is the finished product. As you can see, it's in there, but you can't really tell what's going on underneath. Now, I don't know how well the camera shows this, but you can actually see it like with your naked eye. It would be very hard to tell though. You'd have to actually be looking for it. Otherwise, it looks just like a regular car. Alright guys, so that has been it for the BMS transmission oil cooler installation. Once you have everything put on, it's just as simple as putting your bumper back on. It is tedious, it will take you some time. It's not for beginners, I will say that. So if you have time, go ahead and do it yourself, but it is tedious. You know, you can always take it to a shop and they'll do it for you, but I'll leave the link to the product down below. I will say Payam has been great in communicating with me and helping me install this. This is one of the first ones. It may even be the first one, I don't know, besides the test product, but this is one of the first production units. So we're gonna test it out. We're gonna see how it does, how my transmission holds up, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click like and subscribe, and I'll have more videos coming up soon, so stay tuned. Peace.